Hey guys, in this video, I want to give you a few very simple tips for achieving a healthy weight. When it comes to optimal health and nutrition, there is perhaps no other topic quite as controversial as weight loss. However, despite the seemingly endless conflicting points of view, particularly around what to eat and what not to eat in regards to weight loss, I think the one thing that anybody could agree on is that optimizing the efficiency and the effectiveness of the metabolism is going to be key. As complicated as weight loss is made to be, it is actually quite simple. At the end of the day, what matters most in regards to weight loss is that you are efficiently metabolizing the food you eat, meaning that you're converting that food or nutrition into cellular fuel to be used rather than stored as fat tissue or adipose tissue. Because the truth is, all your substrates, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates can be stored as fat if they are not used as fuel. So more than any particular food per se, or any particular diet, you're going to just want to make sure that you're eating in a way and living in a way that is supportive of good metabolic health. Because again, if you're not efficiently turning these substrates into energy, they will store as fat. So in this video, what I want to do is share with you not necessarily particular foods, but some simple lifestyle advice and dietary advice that could help to boost the rate of metabolism and therefore make your body more efficiently at turning the food you eat into energy, so that way it doesn't store as fat. And something else beneficial is going to happen in regards to optimal weight loss by increasing the metabolic rate, which is that you're going to put on more lean, healthy muscle mass. And not only will the increased muscle mass further contribute to a high rate of metabolism, but the muscle will start to displace both the water and fat in your body, which will not only be beneficial to your overall health, but physically, appearance-wise, the loss of water weight or water retention will make your body appear more slim. You'll see more defined features and ultimately make you look better aesthetically as well. Now, really quick, before we get into these healthy weight loss tips, keep in mind there are different types of weight gain. For most people trying to lose weight, they're trying to lose water weight and fat weight, not necessarily muscle weight. So increasing the rate of metabolism, as I said, might increase your muscle mass. So according to the scale, you might not lose much weight per se, according to pounds or kilograms, but you might lose a couple of inches around the waist. You might lose some puffiness in the face. And that, I think, is what is more important for people, not just, again, in regards to their physical appearance, but also in regards to their health. Because the accumulation of fat and water is indicative of actually a slow metabolic rate and less optimal thyroid function. So more specifically than weight loss, this video is going to be providing tips for fat loss and even water loss. So the loss of added water weight, again, as a symptom of a slow metabolism. So with all that being said, let's get into a couple of very simple tips for achieving a more ideal weight and losing unnecessary fat and water. So one of the first things I'm going to suggest is that you take a look at causative factors for a decreased metabolic rate. Because the cure is in the cause, if we become aware of the various things that are suppressing your metabolism in the first place, this should get rid of a lot of metabolic stress that is otherwise keeping you from efficiently metabolizing your food that's contributing to the weight gain or fat gain in the first place. And of the many things that suppress your metabolic rate, dietarily speaking, polyunsaturated fats and their sources such as grains, legumes, that includes peanuts and corn, of course soy, and vegetable oils, amongst others, are all highly anti-metabolic. They have goitrogenic substances that impair thyroid function. Polyunsaturated fats also increase the production of carnitine, and carnitine is actually known to impair thyroid function. And there's even studies like this that confirm that polyunsaturated fats are highly anti-thyroid. And because the thyroid gland is the master gland of the metabolism, if the thyroid is being turned down through the consumption of polyunsaturated fats or anything that shuts down thyroid function, your whole metabolism is going to decrease, which is going to lead to an increased likelihood of storing the various foods you eat as fat rather than turning them into energy. So the polyunsaturated fats for most people are the major dietary culprit for their weight gain and a lot of their unwanted health symptoms. So the thing that I recommend for most people is that they look up and become very familiar with the various types of polyunsaturated fats and take great effort in reducing and minimizing their consumption. And this is going to be very beneficial because the polyunsaturated fats, other than being anti-thyroid, are ultimately anti-metabolic, meaning that your body does not efficiently metabolize them and convert them into energy. They're often just instantly stored as fat tissue in the body. And once stored as fat in the body, they start to have many overlapping effects with estrogen. They actually can stimulate the production of estrogen, they can stimulate a stress response, and they can have many toxic effects in the body. Not to mention, they increase the rate of lipid peroxidation, so they can have an aging effect on your cells. And the more toxins that start to store in your body, the more fat will store in your body, because toxins and fat have affinity for one another. So this is why polyunsaturated fats are so fattening for people. This is also probably why the animals in the industrial food system, so the animals used for commercial dairy and commercial meat, are often fed polyunsaturated fats to fatten them up. So they're very fattening in a variety of ways, but mostly through their anti-thyroid and their general anti-metabolic effects. So I highly recommend you become very familiar with these foods and the sources of these fats and start to reduce them greatly in your diet, which will start to actually have a systemic benefit on your overall metabolism. Because not only are these foods storing as fat, but once they store as fat in the body, they have a systemic anti-metabolic effect, slowing the metabolism. So after a few years of avoiding the consumption of these fats and they're starting to eliminate from the body and be replaced with saturated fats, this is going to actually increase your overall rate of metabolism and make it a lot easier to keep your metabolism high. My second very simple dietary tip for achieving healthy weight loss would be to favor sugars over starches. So in regards to carbohydrates, there are a couple of different types, but the primary for most people today are going to be sugars in the form of things like fruit. So fructose is a form of sugar, or a simple sugar like sucrose or fructose, are all single saccharide sugars. And these sorts of sugars, again, fruit, cane sugar, maple syrup, honey, are all much more easily metabolized in the body compared to your starches, mostly because they're significantly less insulinogenic. And less insulin means your body is less likely to store these sugars as fat and instead use them instantly for energy or store them as glycogen in the liver or in the brain or in the muscle to be used as energy later on. But they're less likely to store as fat as your starches. So I know this is a great debate in the world of nutrition, whether you consume simple sugars or the complex carbohydrates or starches. Some say that these digest slower, so there's less insulin. But the fact of the matter is, a piece of white bread is easily 50 times more insulinogenic than a piece of fruit. So in regards to your carbohydrates, I say that the superior forms of carbohydrates are going to be organic ripe fruits, again, cane sugar even, maple syrup, raw honey. These are going to be great sources of simple sugars and carbohydrates that not only are less likely to store as fat, but they're actually pro-metabolic in many ways. For example, fructose not only acts similarly to T3, the active form of thyroid hormone, but it can stimulate the further production of active thyroid hormone in that conversion. As I say many times throughout these videos, the conversion of T4 into T3 is dependent upon glucose. So getting adequate glucose in the diet from the sources that I just mentioned can actually stimulate the conversion of thyroid hormone and is pro-metabolic or pro-thyroid. So in regards to carbohydrates, I would suggest that you stick to more of the simple sugars, again, the ones I mentioned, and less starchy sources, especially grain sources. So things like wheat, rye, oats, corn, any sort of legumes. These things are more difficult to digest. They're ultimately gut irritating for most people, especially if they're not properly prepared. And again, they're more insulinogenic and more likely to store as fat. The third tip I'm going to recommend is more of a long-term goal or a broad range piece of advice for optimizing your entire metabolism and therefore losing weight, which is going to be to improve your digestion. So a lot of the times, the reason that people have metabolic issues is because their gut is compromised. They have bacterial endotoxins and bacterial pathogens in their small intestine, and these things have very toxic effects on the metabolism. Because the metabolism and the digestive system are interrelated, if one goes down, usually so does the other. So for a lot of people, digestive stress and inflammation is slowing down the rate of metabolism. Specifically speaking, bacterial endotoxin or bacterial pathogens within the small intestine primarily can actually put off various toxins that inflame the gut and trigger an inflammatory response that the liver therefore has to handle. So in other words, bacterial pathogens in the gut and their metabolic waste can actually poison the liver. And considering the liver is the master detoxification organ, if it becomes compromised, so does the detoxification system, meaning that your body is more likely to store toxins rather than solubilize them and excrete them from the body. And remember, toxins have an affinity toward fat cells. So the more toxins your body stores, the more fat it's likely to store. So to say this in fewer words, if your gut is compromised by bacterial endotoxins and pathogens, their metabolic waste can have toxic inflammatory effects that the liver therefore has to handle, which can overburden the liver, overburden the detoxification system, and lead to toxic fat accumulation. So ultimately what you're going to want to do is improve the overall efficiency of your digestive system. If your rate of digestion is slow overall because of either stress or something like hypothyroid, this means your body, no matter what it eats, is going to be less efficient at breaking down food, meaning that it's more likely to ferment in the gut and increase the overgrowth of bacterial endotoxin. However, if you have an accumulation of bacterial endotoxin just from past stress and you're eating a good diet now, this could also be contributing to a slow rate of digestion. So it's sort of a vicious cycle and something that is difficult to break if you don't have the right knowledge. So I'm going to recommend that if you're having gut issues of any sorts, or if you suspect that you do, and that's the cause of your weight gain, so if you're bloated, for example, a lot of time you have gas and constipation, that could be highly indicative of digestive issues causing your weight issues. I'm going to recommend that you grab this course here and start to learn how to correct and break this vicious cycle and improve your digestive system so that way you can improve your metabolism. Otherwise, some very simple things you can do to start to cleanse the bowels and improve the efficiency of the intestines and the liver and get rid of that bacterial overload in the gut. First and foremost would be the use of activated charcoal. You can learn more about that here in this video. I would also recommend consuming a raw carrot, 1 or 2 a day, to decrease the bacterial endotoxin and also cleanse the bowel. The fiber of the carrot is highly antimicrobial or antibacterial or antibiotic, and this can not only kill off some of those pathogens, but of course the fiber is going to help to cleanse your entire bowels, which can actually improve the efficiency of the liver incredibly. So getting into our fourth and final tip for healthy weight loss, for losing unnecessary fat and water weight, would be to switch your exercise regimen to a more strength training weightlifting exercise program. So a lot of the times people try to lose weight by doing cardio and running. And it does do this to a certain point only because it can stimulate the adrenal pituitary stress-driven metabolism. So a lot of the times it's difficult to tell whether or not you have good thyroid function or not based on weight alone. Because most of the time when you have a broken metabolism or low thyroid, you tend to gain weight. But there are cases where people are ultimately hypothyroid but still have a fast metabolism because they're in a chronic state of stress ultimately. So they're secreting tons of adrenaline, tons of cortisol, tons of norepinephrine and other fat-burning stress hormones that are keeping them very thin and their metabolic rate high, but in a stressful mannerism. So it is possible to have a high rate of metabolism that's driven by the stress metabolism, but this is going to contribute to hypothyroid, and it's ultimately going to contribute to a low energy state and stress in the body, because what's happening is that you're mimicking the effects of a healthy metabolism at the expense of mitochondrial energy production. So it's what everybody says in regards to, an adrenaline high and a cortisol high. It's sort of like borrowing tomorrow's energy for today. You don't have to do that if your thyroid's working optimally. So again, a lot of the times people that engage in tons of cardio exercise, they stay lean, but at the expense of their overall health. So in regards to exercise, if you're somebody that does exercise, I'm going to suggest that you avoid cardio. I'm going to suggest that you avoid exercise that have you gasping for air, because if you're hyperventilating, so are your cells, and that means your cells are becoming stressed out too, and this is going to shift the metabolism from an anabolic state to a catabolistic or breaking down state. So you're not just going to lose fat, you're going to lose muscle, you're going to break down your skin tissue, and you're going to accelerate the whole aging process. So how I recommend to exercise is to stick to very simple strength training, functional movements, simple things like squats and deadlifts and pull-ups and push-ups, and also sticking to more concentric exercise movements, so squeezing rather than eccentric, because studies like this confirm that concentric movements induce less oxidative stress. Not to mention that concentric strength training is going to help you build more lean muscle, and that muscle mass is a source of androgen hormones, which keeps the metabolic rate high. So I think overall, concentric functional strength training is less stressful on the cell and your body as a whole. You're going to experience less oxidative stress, a significantly lesser amount of stress hormones being produced, and more anabolic hormones being produced. Not to mention, I think that although people are sort of afraid of putting on muscle as if they're going to get too big and look too manly, especially for women, this is just simply not the case. I find that both men and women who put on some lean muscle just tend to look more proportionate and more aesthetic overall. So I think it's beneficial for both your health goals and your body image goals, or achieving your ideal body composition. All right, guys, so there you have it. 4 very simple things that you can do right now to start to increase the rate of metabolism, which means that you're going to more efficiently convert your food into energy. You're going to decrease the overall stress in your body that contributes to the suppression of the metabolism that would lead to more fat storage and just less energy overall to metabolize nutrients and use it as energy again rather than storing it as fat. So these tips are not only going to help you achieve a more ideal body weight and body image, but these tips will overall boost the metabolism, which will increase your overall energy production and benefit you in many ways more than just the way that you look. Also, it's going to benefit the way that you feel and your overall health. So if you want to learn more tips just like these, additional tips for improving your metabolism and achieving a more ideal weight, if you want to learn how to properly eat, the things to avoid, the lifestyle habits to change, and even optimizing your exercise program, working out in a way that is non-stressful and non-catabolistic, be sure to check out our healthy weight loss course, which goes into depth. It covers everything that you could ever imagine in regards to achieving a healthy weight and refines the whole subject matter that is rooted in sound physiology and science-backed research. Otherwise, that does bring this video to a close. If you've enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't yet already. And for learning more, be sure to check out our blog, our online tonic herb shop, and for checking out the healthy weight loss course, you can find all of these things in the description box below.